The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or CBGTV.com. The medical and health information shared does not constitute a physician-patient relationship. It is provided for general informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional care. Accordingly, you are encouraged to consult and speak openly with the appropriate care professionals.
Is 420 camping your thing? Do you like cannabis cops? Want to learn more about cannabis? Enjoy music festivals? Living on the East Coast or looking for a really good reason to visit? Then Harvest Fest is calling your name.
Join us the weekend of July 14th to 16th at Fox Mountain Camping Park in the Annapolis Valley, Nova Scotia, to meet like-minded people, have your cannabis questions answered, listen to great bands, and have a blast.
Service lots available and camping is included in festival admission. $60 for the weekend, or $30 for Friday, and $40 for Saturday. Food trucks, hot showers, flush toilets, and accessible washrooms. Rolling contest sponsored by Canadian Lumber Limited, with chances to win a case of rolling papers and more throughout the weekend.
For info about attending or vending, email chair@mumm.ca. Hope to see you there.
This will be fun. Hey, buddy. He's a good boy. That's a good dog right there. Good to go. Okay, ready? They say when your number comes up, there's no escaping it. That's it. You're dead. Well, my number is 5, stage 5. And this is kind of why I didn't die. This is going to be all about why I didn't die. This is Green Crush. Thanks for tuning us in. Well, here we are again at the lovely, wonderful, amazing, and delicious food, I might add, at the Pacific Junction Hotel, live in Toronto on a Tuesday. We always come to you Tuesdays at 2:03, and we're always a little bit late. Things happen. Today, I was detained by the good folks of the constabulary, and you should see the clothes they wear. I mean, you know, they're like a SWAT team, but anyway, they work on the commuter GO train, and took about 9 of them to figure out why I didn't have my dog in a legal container. Mostly because I don't give a shit about legalities when it comes to life and death. I sure don't care about this, but they did put up quite a fight and attempt to hold me there for a while. And I explained that I did not want to be detained. And if they weren't going to arrest me, I was going to be on my way. So then he counter-warned me that, well, I'm going to write you up this ticket and file it anyway, even if you don't take it. And I said, that's right. That's exactly what you're going to do. So if you're going to bring your dog on public transit and they say you have a legal container requirement, learn this, that a legal container means for animals. And so they count that as boa constrictors and everything else. And then they give you reasons like, oh, well, the dog, some people are afraid of dogs. This thing is tiny. And I think more people would be afraid of a boa constrictor in a cloth laundry bag, which is legal, than the rest of it. So these fucking laws have to change. Hi there. Sometimes if you're a little kid listening to this, I swear. Okay, so I'm sorry. It's just real stuff. This is a lunchtime show kind of thing, just after lunch, but don't listen to it during lunch. I hope you finish. Gross. Talking about all of these things. Whenever you're trying to eliminate a disease, you're going to get into some gross topics. I did an interview I want to mention with the wonderful, the lovely, the talented Richard Surrett. He has the Conspiracy Show on an AM radio station in Toronto, AM 740. It's on Sunday nights at 11 till 1 o'clock. 2 hours of fantastic information, and they were kind enough to have me on. This thing is on the Google, and if you go to Well, I'll get to that later. But it's a great show because then you'll just go and listen to that now. We hung out on air, so myself and a few other people were sitting around discussing things and listening to fascinating discussions on Richard's conspiracy-themed show. It's also a geopolitical show. You can't really cover geopolitics without covering some element of conspiracy, unless you pretend to, like all the defenders of the CIA now. But I'm going off on a rant I didn't intend to in the first place. That's what makes it live. All right, let's see here. I do have some things I want to talk about. Let's go with that. Why can't I find it? Here we go. Right. Well, the green crush is cannabis. It's green, and it crushes cancer. Maybe not all cancer, but no one makes that claim. That's a sort of a straw man tactic where they say, oh, this guy thinks he can cure all the cancers. I never said any of that, but I have to deflect that kind of criticism all the time. It shows me their limited thinking, that they're either believing folks who set it down a certain way or just haven't done their homework. But we are constantly being informed by these people, our intelligent, benevolent rulers, leaders, elected representatives of our interests, so they say, in this, what they call democracy, who then in their newly decorated offices, before blowing our money, before blowing our credit and cranking up our debt load deliberately designed to last forever, before they do that from their positions of take, before that happens, they are sworn in on the Bible. Okay? Now, that might change the way things are going with migration and immigration and the displacement of people that used to have a life somewhere and now have been, as the result of a series of orchestrated circumstances, finding themselves rushing into other countries. So we may not have to take an oath on the Bible anymore. I'm sure some people now have an exclusionary clause where they could hold the Quran or put their hand on their chest if they are non-religious, but they do have to swear in. Canadian politicians do when they get into office, and they swear to serve us, their citizens, in your minds. That's where they swear to do that, because who they really swear to is that which way are we pointed here? That way. East, that queen over there. That's who they swear to. And they lead us to believe they're serving our interests right after you hear them take an oath to serve the queen. And they claim, those people, that we really should not be using cannabis. It's a demon drug. Oh, marijuana. It'll change things. Oh, no. And because it is bad, they say, and because it is wrong, they whine. And clearly, because the Queen and the Crown does not want us to use it. They don't want us to use it. I think it's quite evident, if you look at it, that they don't want us to use it. And this show contains many reasons why that is. And thankfully, there are more shows, and they will also contain reasons why that is. And we're going to really work over some of the information and data here, because these are things that people need to know. Because the future of your own life is about your own health, okay? And you've got a lot of different people vying for your dollar to provide you with something that you can take twice a day, or just before you go to bed, or when you wake up in the morning, or when you have a backache. And there's an industry there. So, let's not pretend that a lot of people aren't making a lot of money the way the laws are right now. And one of the reasons the laws are having such great difficulty changing is because these game setters are re-rigging the game. They have to succumb to the pressure of the electorate, who are slowly starting to wake up. One delicious drink of coffee they make here at the Old Pacific Junction Hotel And coffee's a great thing to have. I found that it's good for my own personal situation after reading loads of surveys saying that it's dangerous for you, it's good for you, it's dangerous for you, it's good for you. This is coffee, and it's been around forever. And if you sit around every 6 months, there'll be a new report on what's wrong with it. But let's get back to these punks who are somehow we're allowing them to call the shots. These folks that are servile to the queen while pretending to be serving us. They say it's immoral to use cannabis. This is coming from them. That's a claim that goes without evidence, by the way, other than being manufactured and promoted as truth. That's what they say. These people that are kind of running things now, they say it's immoral, which is absolutely incredible given their track record.
This is an inconsistency. There is much to be considered. I must re-evaluate.
Error.
Yeah.
Examine. I shall analyze error. Analyze error.
Yeah, so let's take a look at these errors, okay? So they're saying that it's an immoral, bad drug. And, well, let's just roll it back in time a little bit and talk about the drug war. The drug war was a lie. The war on drugs, the drug war, whatever you like to call it, and it failed. One of the many, many American-triggered wars over the last 50 years that have failed in a winning sense, but certainly done extremely well on the profiteer end of things. That's why you keep them going. And it continues to fail, and it will continue to fail as policy because it is nothing more, the war on drugs, than an envelope of perception for a racism-based lie. And look what's going on out there today. You've got all kinds of racism problems, and this was, stepped up in 1970. It's a hammer, this war on drugs, a hammer to smash those who speak out against war and against black people. That's the whole reason for the drug war, folks. This comes on the heels of after a decade of research by some very intelligent people that were just about to release all of this information and already were when these lawmakers decided to just crank out the bullshit carousel and make sure everybody gets a horse to go round and round and listen to that stupid song for the next 40 years. You can't even really mathematically estimate the amount of physical damage, loss of life, medical care costs out of control that this war on drugs has brought us. But they're just trying to maintain that now by switching in Canada over to a legal system that's somehow going to have something like 43 more laws than we already have right now while it's illegal. I don't make all of these rules up. I'm just commenting on how ridiculous they are. Very, and they have to fall. And in my case, they've fallen because I observe none of them ever. Of course, I don't, go on my balcony of my apartment and breathe smoke into the face of the folks next door. I'm not a inconsiderate bastard. But I think it's time that a lot of these people realize that we folks are doing this anyway. Okay, so sometimes those lies, such as the war on drugs, take a long time to discover. And they don't pop up right away. And in the meantime, their naysayers will say, well, you don't have any proof. Well, sometimes it takes time for proof to foment. And in this time and age, we're just now fully aware of the lie of the war on drugs 40 years later. They didn't 100% know it was a conspiracy in the American government until the assassination committee they ran in Congress some 15 years after the fact, when the final official verdict was that it indeed was a conspiracy, although they didn't get into who and how much because nobody wanted to find that out, who cashes a check on a regular basis. But yeah, so it could be a conspiracy theory, and I'm saying could be because there's a lot of resistance to the fact that those even exist. So yeah, okay. So here's an article then in that case to keep it mainstream for you, that you could find a version of this on CNN if you'd like. And you could also find this on Huffington Post, which is also a mainstream organization. But I'm going to read from a different publication right now. And it is called, I forgot the name of it. I put it into Bitly. Where's the full URL? Come on. IB Times. Whatever that is. IB Times. It's some kind of, I've read it before. It looks more impressive than it is, but I'm going to read from here anyway. Is the war on drugs racist? Nixon aide admitted policies were designed to target black people and anti-war protesters. The infamous John Ehrlichman, one of Tricky Dick's sidecar men, reportedly declared that President Richard Nixon's anti-drug push was a ploy to attack black and anti-war dissenters. And there he is having a chat with our old friend Henry Kissinger, this toxic bilge pod who toddles around whichever countries on the planet still won't arrest him. Still influencing presidents. They don't really change all that much. But it says here, a previously unreleased interview with a top aide to Nixon indicates the disgraced American leader stepped up a drug prohibition in the United States for some pretty cynical reasons. John Ehrlichman, in 1994, answered that Nixon's White House domestic affairs advisor, that's who he was, of 1969 to 73, bluntly responded to the so-called war on drugs, was started to disrupt and imprison anti-war protesters, and I would consider myself one of them. I wasn't around at the time, but not in an anti-war sense anyway, and black people. This is coming from a president, another Republican one, too. The Clintons did some pretty nasty things to black people also, but all of a sudden it's just Trump who's the racist. He's just at the end of a long line. You just weren't paying attention earlier. You want to know what this was really all about? The Nixon campaign in 1968 had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. The current versions of which you can see battling each other right now in various protests around this country. We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the Vietnam War or black people. Couldn't do that. They wanted to, I guess, huh? They wanted to make it illegal. And we criticized North Korea. Hilarious. But by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the war on drugs? Of course we did. And their modern-day followers, Jeff Sessions, that oxygen-deprived elf who was trying to put together a committee to take down people using cannabis in the States, and these clowns here in Parliament in Ottawa who insist that it's terrible and immoral. They're really behind the times on all of this. Okay, so over the time and the gradual revealing of the corporate industry and government proffered lies, these self-important agents of influence have slowly bowed to the pressure of the many and the back from the dead. And while some of them still say they don't like it, they're going to allow us. They're going to allow me maybe 4 plants if I fill out the paperwork properly, and to use a plant that can easily grow outside in nearly every country of the world. And they hide behind this Bible and their pseudo-morality. So I sent this tweet to Justin Trudeau quite some time ago, actually. It's my pinned tweet. If you were to go to @AlanComic, you'll always see this up at the top. This is from the Bible. So again, I am not a conversion agent. It's just a piece of literature that does exist, and you imbue as much belief and trust in it as possible, as long as you remember it is an instrumental piece of equipment within the system that oppresses us. So for the folks that are really upset about cannabis being illegal and they think other people shouldn't use it because the good, moral, wonderful, always heart in the right place government says it's illegal, therefore it's bad, listen up. This is in your Bible, in your hotel room, or maybe in your lounge, or maybe you can look it up online. And this is going to be from the King James Version because I'm English. This is Genesis chapter 1. Just crack the book open. It's on the first page. What's taking you so long? It's on the first page. You don't have to go any further than this. And I recommend that you understand these two verses very, very well. If you are ever egregiously arrested for the possession of cannabis and they have the balls and the gall to stand you in front of a judge wearing a black robe, they're going to ask you to swear on the Bible. They're going to ask you to put your hand on it and put your right hand up in the air, your left hand on the Bible, and make sure you're telling the truth. And if you're not doing that, you have to swear to take an oath of promise anyway. But stick with the Bible, even if you're a Muslim or some other religion, because the Bible is right there, and you can crack open the Bible. And before these questions come firing your way from the gentleman who is the friend of the other gentleman, who are both the Crown prosecutor and the defendant lawyer and the judge, and they're all in a club downtown someplace at the end of the day, you can say this: yes, I will swear to tell the truth on the Bible. Let me just verify that this is indeed a Bible. I don't want to swear on something that's not true. I'm not going to sign my name to something I haven't read yet, like an iTunes contract, when my life is involved in this particular court case. So here we go. Genesis, page 1, chapter 1, verse 11. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, comma, the herb yielding seed. Ding, 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 ding. That's the cannabis right there. And the fruit tree yielding fruit after its kind. It's also a fruit. They're talking about pineapples and shit, but this can also apply to cannabis because it is. Let me back it up. And the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself. Ding, 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 ding again. It's cannabis, folks. Page 1. From the maker, page 1 of the owner's operator manual of any good Judeo-Christian on the planet. Yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. So again, God said, let's bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, the fruit tree yielding fruit, whose seed is in itself upon the earth, and it was so, because God made that happen, because a judge wearing a robe wasn't going to be able to make that happen. And that's chapter 11. Let's move on to chapter 12. And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good. So if God saw that it was good, Your Honor, what's with these ridiculous possession charges from these false constructed laws that you are talking about? They tell us what you people are doing against our illegal laws is wrong, but we have decided, dun, 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 that yes, we will allow you, we will grant you use of this symptomatic pain reliever, as they still won't acknowledge it's a restorer of the body without horrible complications or addictions compared to some of the alternative and or mainstream methods. This inexpensive commodity has been shown to heal since pre-biblical times, okay, and eons before its illegal ban over most of the previous century. And as soon as we get people saying, well, come on now, that's just anecdotal. Technically, that's true, because when the official bodies don't study the anecdotes over and over again, they don't have the data. And when they don't want to have the data, they don't study the thing. But as far as shitting on the notion because it's anecdotal is concerned, also consider that dead men tell no tales. And I wouldn't have been able to say this thing that I am now saying. And at this moment, as I power my way along to my upcoming 3rd anniversary of my funeral. Too bad, fuckers. I literally am back from the dead, yo. And I have seen the light. And they are lying. And at least some of the government types here are on board and do understand what's going on with that. And we featured him on the show. I'd love to get him as a guest. I'm working on it. I've made contact with a British parliamentary secretary, and maybe she is going to help me bring this gentleman on. This is an MP whose last name is Smith, which is perfect. I'm not even going to tell you his first name because Smith is the moniker of the everyman. They were the goldsmith, the blacksmith, the silversmith, and everybody has that. A lot of Anglo people have that name. It's a very, very common name. So for now, and I've announced him before, but for impactful reasons of my own choosing, I am deciding to not mention his name, other than telling you he is the UK parliamentary shadow secretary within the Labour Party. His last name is Smith, and he has some excellent advice about these ridiculous, oppressive laws.
I think we have to say to those who put up with the barbaric stupidity and cruelty of government policy to act in a way of civil disobedience. We know most of the countries in the world allow this most ancient of medicines, been used for 5,000 years in every continent in the world. It's used for medicinal purposes. Well, I would call on people, and I know we're not supposed to do this as members, to break the law, to come here and use cannabis.
Well, that sounds like a good idea. Thank you, Mr. Government person over there in England. Because we've got some problems with that kind of straightforwardness here. Because now we are fully aware of the fact that they do lie. And we had Russell Barth on the show a couple of weeks ago. He is a cannabis activist, and he's almost certain that this law won't go through. And either way, it's a problem. It's a problem if it does and problem if it doesn't. But they might find a way to lose their grip on this. And it wouldn't surprise me if that becomes an accurate event, that Justin Trudeau then says, oh, well, listen. We couldn't do it this time. We had to prorogue or whatever the snag is this time, but we will do it next time. So vote for us again, okay? Vote for us again. I'm really going to do it this time. I really, really, really am going to do it this time. Yeah. Bullshit. The Canadian journalist Michael Harris, and there are only a couple of journalists left in Canada, okay? So I'm glad that we have this one here. Michael Harris. And let me just tell you a little bit about Michael Harris. I don't know him personally, but I sure have read his stuff over the years, because when we had the previous blue regime of the Harper team, the Conservatives that were also even probably more so further against cannabis, Michael Harris used to shred these guys. And he pointed out so many of the inconsistencies and nonsensical turns of event brought to us by our previous I hate saying the word leader, because they aren't. They're figureheads, and if you're really letting them lead you, my God, you're probably not able to be listening to this show. Maybe try the ballroom at IKEA. Anyway, he was very critical of a lot of the agenda and the way things were going under Harper. And I only say that Harper's gone now, and Trudeau, the liberal, the other side of the story is in the I don't know what you call him, the globalist playboy. I don't know. But so he's very critical of Justin as well. So he's not coming at it from I really love the Conservatives point of view. He's coming at it from if you're doing the wrong thing at the wrong time, I'm going to write about it point of view. So from iPolitics came out February this year. It says he's a liar. Why the left coast, and what they mean by that is British Columbia. If you're listening from elsewhere in the world, we call that the left coast, and predominantly a lot of lefties type of people in the cities of that area. Of course, the rural areas less so, but we call it the left coast affectionately, and they might be writing off Justin Trudeau. British Columbians did fall hard for the sunny ways. Trudeau's approach to development is changing their minds, and Michael goes into a story where he's about to meet this guy, but halfway through it, he says, not long ago, Indigenous people were among the strongest supporters of Justin Trudeau in the country, although a big part of mainstream BC also succumbed to Trudeau's charms in 2015. It could be argued that First Nations people showed the greatest enthusiasm of all, and with good reason. Trudeau made serious and solid commitments. Harper wasn't doing that. He said no relationship was more important to him than the nation-to-nation relationship with the First Nations, and Harper wasn't saying that. So you can see how you would have to vote for him. He was so convincing that our people went out to vote for him in unprecedented numbers, said Grand Chief Phillip. It sounded a lot better than the previous decade under Harper. They were virtually at war with the Harper government for 10 years. Harper inflicted great hardship on our people. You know, I almost gagged saying his name. I'm so glad that he's into the history books. But I'm making a point here because with him gone, he says, Trudeau gave us hope. And all that changed when the Trudeau government gave the green light to BC's massive hydro development on the Peace River Site C Dam. So I get it. This isn't about cannabis. It's about the nature of the man lying. Okay? So because now, in the face of mass awakening to the facts over the now crumbling East Germany / North Korean style diktat that we all live under here in Canada, of how exactly one is allowed to manage his or her own health here in Canada and elsewhere, an awakening is taking place that this show, Green Crush, and everybody working on it in concert with many, many others, we intend to intensify that awakening for the betterment of the actual people without the lies that go with it, who do have that right. Not the pyramidal corporations and their CEOs at the tippy top of the money scam. And the folks lounging about from deep within the velvet-curtained, cigar-smoke-draped, rosewood and teak fine leather lounges. These inner sanctums of the private clubs of societal control and influence. A Scottish right here, a York right there. Today, naturally, many of those clubs rather covertly feathered into the geography of the expensive stock market zone in the downtown cores. They're not having tax problems like the merchants on Yonge Street that are losing their 1 or 2 floor businesses to another commercial tower because they tinkered again with the tax laws to favor the corporations again. These downtown clubs and their global reciprocal brothers, often behind these marauding political proclaimers of all things good and the decent. These clubs, they sit around and figure this stuff out ahead of time. And then they tell, and they're bankers, and they're in the judiciary, and you don't get to go in, and none of them have corporate advertising on the side because they don't need to put a Pepsi sign on the side of their building. They're okay. They've been there forever, from the beginning of this city. Some of these clubs, if you were ever an elected official of that particular party, you get in for free. You don't have to pay the $15,000 a year in the annual dues and whatever the hell while you sit around and booze it up, pulling the strings of power for these underlings in office who change the rules and make them more oppressive. I mean, it's just, the whole thing is upside down. It needs to stop. And cannabis can not only help you with your medical situation, it can open up your mind to realize the game at hand that's being had. We're being had. So these clubs downtown, you want to get in one and you used to be in Stephen Harper's government, you get in for free. How about that? The Ontario government, any conservative minister, you can hop around the world. And when you do, you're hobnobbing, right? When you are, you're arranging for the money funnel to go into your pockets and away from everybody else's. Or we wouldn't be here right now. These booze-soaked and mentally damaged, the cannabis abstinent among us who claim not to partake of such a horrible substance, who rule us for our own good from a clear, as they say, mind. Well, that kind of thinking and ruling has left this world in a terrible place. This is the thing these guys are bragging about. This is the thing that these folks with the decent morality, and they never do cannabis, and they think it's horrible, and they're finally bending to our will. They think that's what's going on? Well, it's ridiculous to assume that you can control other people once other people start to realize the truth of it. It's the same reason I didn't ask for permission when I first started using cannabis to get my cancerous ass out of the morgue. And there was no time for that. And there's no need for that once you're inside of it all. So I'd like to add a little sound effect here to sort of break things up and take a drink of water. Oh, I blew it. Okay. It's a live show, folks. I don't know if
the citizens respond to the challenges of the outside world and its geopolitical machinations. Say, this is news, Caleb, and we better do something about it.
So we better do something about it. That one worked out okay, I guess. Hey, Russell, how did that sound? That was pretty good. Huh? Russell's here today. Russell is the genius engineer who we've been shepherded through some pretty crazy technical hassles. So thanks, Russell, for turning things around, doing whatever you did. And the guys at Eggplant Digital. Here we are at Eggplant Digital, some of the best media content creation in Canada. What's some of the other shows, Russell?
We got the Raw Mike Richards show.
Raw Mike Richards every day. Check that out. That's Monday, where I first got to see Russell and meet him. So
Monday to Friday. Rude Dudes.
Rude Dudes.
Century Clubbed.
Century Clubbed. What's that?
That is a drinking show.
Oh, right.
Where they do 100 shots of beer in 100 minutes, and they just go through questions and interviews. And,
okay.
Yeah.
So that's a club of boozle guys right there. See what I mean? Setting policy. Okay, thanks, Russell. So Russell's cool. I got a little drink of water there. Great. Well, let me remind you that this world sucks. If you haven't even turned on your television set or your computer lately, the eclipse was fun, but now we're back to it. Damn near every ruler who has contributed to the management and improvement of this planet has done the opposite. These sober minds, so they claim, have ushered in for us a permanent debt spiral, which is impossible to pay off, so they tell us to pay it down, which is a useless fool's errand, and an admission of being owned and under control. And then you get your Alberta-based oil fires or your oil-based Alberta fires and your oil-based Texas flood devastation with floating fire ants and underwater old folks' homes flooded with predictable floods and the debt ceiling and the fiscal cliff, and we're all going to die from Ebola. Remember that? We shouldn't even be here right now from these guys. And increasing tax debts with diminishing returns of service and cutbacks and all kinds of needs, unless they are military invasion needs, among the crumbling at home infrastructure that we can't seem to afford, especially while there's a war going on. Always, somewhere. So let's make sure we promote jobs for General Dynamics of London, Ontario, and some other military purveyor in Newmarket, and they're in Montreal, and they manufacture weapons of war. And they're all sober too. They don't use cannabis. No. They're straight thinking people, while we're being morally shat upon and cast into a negative light by these people. This is what they're doing. So, for example, here are some moral people. All right. Now, when this story came out, I started to get involved with pushing back on it. General Dynamics Canada wins a $10 billion deal with Saudi Arabia. This is from 2014. Harper was still in power. That was the conservative plan. We were all upset about it. And then when Justin Trudeau and his liberals on the other side of the political spectrum came in, they just kept this deal going. And anybody complaining about it was hit with the nonsensical dirge, jobs. That's all it's about. Here's this article from 14. General Dynamics wins $10 billion deal with Saudi Arabia. The federal government has helped secure a $10 billion U.S. deal for a Canadian company, General Dynamics, London, Ontario. Give them a call. To sell armored vehicles to Saudi Arabia, a country widely condemned for its human rights abuses. So that's in the CBC, which is an advertising medium and a news purveyor that gets government money. So they can't say they didn't hear about this. The deal was announced back in February 14. Isn't that nice? Valentine's Day by International Trade Minister Ed Fast. And he's gone fast now because they got turned over at the London, Ontario plant of General Dynamics Land System. And the big deal was they're going to have a $10 billion deal. It's jobs. It's really important. And when the anti-war people that Nixon tried to flatten with the war on drugs, such as myself and other people of color who they decided were also going to get in trouble, or anybody that was pushing back on procuring military arms for Saudi Arabia so they could do horrible things, and they have, was met with the cry of, well, jobs, 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 and you're not being very patriotic, and we need to help the economy grow and grow and grow. And I don't know why the economy has to keep growing and growing and growing, because when my Metastases was doing that, it was bad fucking news. But you get the point. These are the people who don't partake of cannabis making these decisions. So you get the point. But thankfully here, you don't get the point. You don't get the point of the sword coming down on the necks of the people that the Saudi military hardware customers that we sold shit to use to oppress and to decapitate and to create a big collection of severed heads that actually outstrips ISIS by comparison. It's a business deal, though. That's what's more important. But now that we have evidence that this has been used, and there has been footage, the Minister of Trade, whatever the hell she does, Chrystia Freeland, they're having an inquiry. How could these people in Saudi Arabia do these things with this equipment we sold them? This will not stand. Let's spend a shitload more money to run out and figure out why that happened when we had people telling us at the very day one that we shouldn't be doing this. But I hope that's covered in the $10 billion, because we're going to have to pay for it. That's what's going on with these people. These are all results of the cannabis-free mind, the selling off of real estate assets and our healthcare system we all once paid for, but now billionaires buy and lease back at a profit while manipulating the threat of a nuclear war during another civil war triggered by deliberately engineered racial riots. And for the Liberal government of Canada, what did we most have that everyone's talking about now? A puff piece on the cover of the Rolling Stone for Justin's crafted image maintenance. That's the only thing that was on there, rather than the truth. You know, rather than the truth from this sober, non-cannabis, moral diktat mind. This game is over, folks. It's over for me anyway. I'm in the theater looking at the trailers when the film's over, looking at the little extras at the end of the movie, and then they just started to play another movie for me. So I think that's pretty good. This all comes down to one thing and one thing only: access to cannabis, whether it's recreational or not. It's just a simple request. It doesn't have to be a big deal, and it's not really a request so much as a desire and a statement that it is going to happen. A lot of people feel that way.
We know most of the countries in the world allow this most ancient of medicines, been used for 5,000 years in every continent in the world. It's used for medicinal purposes. Well, I would call on people, and I know we're not supposed to do this as men, but to break the law, to come here and use cannabis.
I just want to dig flowers.
Aren't you glad you didn't need surgery?
So enough of you at the helm there, Mr. Trudeau. We're all done with that. And you can take Bill Blair with you, who's a former cop in charge of making sure folks have access to things that he used to make money on taking out of circulation. This entire task force of clear-thinking, non-cannabis using oppressive liars. That is the way of the land right now. You're being called out, sir. I'd love to have Mr. Trudeau. He took his canoe near my where I live in the East End of Toronto a couple of years ago. I think it would be nice if he were to come down here and have a little chat downtown. We can have all the Secret Service standing out on King Street, making sure everything's okay. I'm sure we'll be able to throw this together for you in an acceptable way. But you need to atone and at least tell us the truth. You had a cross-Canada tour about cannabis and disseminating information back and forth, and you didn't list the locations that you were traveling on the justice.gov website. How the hell were we supposed to find you? Oh, I see. Oh, that was by design, was it? Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, to Justin and Bill and the folks and Raybould and the rest of them, and those who continually seek to impose upon the freedom of others in a supposed democracy with their allegedly pristine minds unsullied with the terrible demon drug of marijuana, that ought to be tested, these folks. They really should be tested. It should become part of the nomination papers process, tested for psychopathy before running for office, and their own twisted views that have benefited only a tiny club and enslaved the rest and thoroughly damaged the world with their policies. Sorry. Same root word. It's over. I see you. And I'm showing people what I see, and they are seeing it as well. So thank you. Seriously. I know that sounds sarcastic, but I am expressing gratitude now that I know what I'm about to say will upset some people. And that's not why I'm saying it. I'm saying it because it's the truth. That I am thanking so much these people for bringing my awareness to their criminality with such a sharp razor's edge of assertion and decision to move forward with action against these lies. I am thanking them for revealing their game. But more importantly, I am very much grateful for my terminal stage 4 guaranteed to not live beyond 1 year, impossible to defeat, horrifically metastasized cancer. Thank you for that. I am grateful for this because, first of all, it's gone now. And it turns out I wasn't terminal. And my stage 4 that they wouldn't roll back to 3210, fine, we're kicking it up to stage 5. And as for the guarantee of death, well, I'm now here to collect on the guarantee. You know, like when a guarantee fails, that's what you do, right? You collect on a guarantee. It's the metastases in cancer, the dissolving of the bones like throwing a Tums antacid tablet into a glass of ginger ale, but in slow motion. That's pretty much what goes on with your bones, just fizzing away, followed shortly thereafter by the rest of your body. And I was told, and we are so often told, there is no way and no chance to stop that. Well, you're wrong, because it's me partaking of cannabis that you can't stop. And instead, it's metastases that can and should be arrested, not the people using cannabis as a medicine to reverse metastases for whatever they want to do. Maybe live a little bit longer. And for the people that just like to do it. Like having a drink. Huh? Why is that so weird? A little snifter of brandy? You don't call that a crutch in the private clubs? You get deals on it. You pay less for it than everyone else. So I beat my death sentence because the only way you can learn the difficult task of cracking open a safe is to be stuck in a room with a safe and no windows and no Wi-Fi and no hope and no future and nothing else to do, and no one will hire you, and you couldn't go there anyway because you're too physically unable to do anything. And you sit in front of that safe and you think, I don't know how to unlock a safe. This is really a difficult task for me. But if it's the only task and you're completely focused, you spin the tumblers, you listen, stuff clicks, and you try again. And eventually, perhaps in your case, as it did in mine, the safe unlocks. And the same people in this old world who don't want you opening that safe don't want you opening any safe, especially the ones that they own. So we're going to cover some news stories, but I think that's been crushed. Yeah, that's crushed. Okay, so come on down, Justin. We're going to move on to some different things now. And we have, who am I? What am I doing here? Why am I talking about this? Why does this guy think he knows so much about this anecdotal story about saving his life with cancer? Because I'm the one telling the story. When you get to tell the anecdote after they told you weren't going to be here, it's worth more than you're saying by using the word anecdote as a denigrating term. So I'm going to go to the Reddit page now that features my story right here on the Mike Richards show in this very studio. Of course, we changed the placards in the background to Green Crush because my name's not Mike Richards, but they're not really showing up on camera today, huh? There's nothing really, nothing. Yeah. Anyway, so I used to tell jokes for a living, and I was on a television show that plucked me out of the stand-up comedy scene from my political savvy. I don't know what they were doing. They wanted to spice up the show a little bit with a little more cutting satire than they were currently writing. And when I started doing that, they started to pay me. And then things changed over time, and I wasn't so much contributory to the overall narrative of the theme anymore. And that's the way the show goes. You know, some other people are in charge, and if you're not driving, you don't get to say when you pull over. So I got my walking papers from there, but it was okay because I was doing a show that I couldn't really do anyway. It was so difficult physically to carry on with anything. And going through what I found out, and I'm back now. I wanted to comment on some really good questions that were posted on the Reddit page. If you put in comedian Alan Park and stage 4 cancer, it'll come up on Reddit. And episode 21 of the Mike Richards show with myself talking about all of this in the first place and bringing it forward. And again, thanks so much to Mike for letting me go on for an hour that time on his show. So there I am talking about what happened to me and how I got out of it, and about homeostasis, and about how it is true that the body has many complex systems of function, and one of them is widely ignored and deliberately suppressed, the awareness of the endocannabinoid system, which needs cannabis. It needs it. You should be taking it all the time. You should be taking it as a food. They put a food pyramid together, and then food groups and etc. And they never mentioned cannabis being something they needed to put in there. But your body does literally have these receptors. Thank goodness, if you don't believe me, you can type in endocannabinoid into Google and see what it says for yourself. ENDOCANNABOID. So this gentleman, I think it's a gentleman, I'm not sure, because he's talking about prostate cancer himself. And I think no matter how you identify these days, only the male physiology is going to get prostate cancer anyway. This gentleman says, I've witnessed this myself. And what he's referring to is my story and how I turned things around for myself. I've witnessed it myself. Pro health tip, and this is a great one. Ingest a rice grain-sized bit of Rick Simpson oil every night before you go to bed. Rick Simpson, of course, the man that, the Canadian that can't live here anymore because they chased him out, these sane, sober, non-cannabis people, because he was helping so many people with this Rick Simpson oil, which is a formula that he was able to come up with to synthesize one whole plant down to 60 grams of oil spread across the period of 90 days. And we don't get all weird about, trying to take the THC out of it. Some moralistic crusade of ignorance, but aren't they all? You just leave it in there. It's a whole plant thing. You leave it in there. And if you could find a way to ingest the roots as well, good for you. You should be having several plants. You should juice it, make ice cubes out of it, eat it. And for all the really uptight folks, you can also do this with the male plants that do not offer the psychoactive component, because the CBDs are in there, which don't get you high, but do help. A lot of things are going on with it. And it's food, okay? It's an amino acid. It's vitamins. If you don't have this in your body, you're like the vegan who doesn't eat meat and he doesn't get enough B12, and so he later becomes sick because he broke down. You need certain nutrients. That's not in question. You got to have certain nutrients to keep going. That is not in question. The part that's in question is, why are the people at the top of the control pyramid telling the rest of us nothing about this stuff in school, nothing about it in nutrition, nothing about it anywhere, acting like they don't know anything about it, and that's completely and demonstrably untrue. They know how the brain works. They sure as shit know how the amygdala works. That's where fear gets processed, and that's how these people rule. But let's get back to this pro-health tip. Ingest a rice grain-sized bit of RSO every night before you go to bed. Now, this isn't the cancer dosage that I had that you might want to talk to me about if you were to find something wrong with you that you wanted to take on in my same way. And again, legally speaking, I'm not telling you to do it. I'm saying if that happened to me, this is what I'd do. You have to do a concentrated, focused Rick Simpson recommended course. But this guy's saying that if you ingest a rice grain, and that's uncooked, rice, little small, tiny thing, super powerful. Rice grain sized. I just made the finger size thing for the camera. You know, I'm holding up a little rice grain for the camera and the people watching this show. And I realize I'm also speaking to listeners. Sorry about that. So you've got your little tiny piece of rain rice size of Rick Simpson oil before you go to bed. This fella did this for 2 years, and he was able to shed his blood pressure medication. Because I could vouch for that. You go right to sleep. As soon as you're ready, you go, oh, that's it, boom, and you're out. It's a sleep regulator. So even if you don't have anything wrong with you in the way of cancer or any other kind of autoimmune diseases or anything else, hey, guess what? It's also good for sleep aid. Sleep like a baby. And the good thing about sleeping, what are you doing? You're resting and rebuilding and repairing. And he says he's keeping his cellular mutations in check as the components in the extract, the oil, aid in proper DNA replication and cause apoptosis in existing mutated cells. Apoptosis. Every time I hear that, even though I know it's fantastic, I feel like I'm watching a commercial for beer popsicles or something. Let's take a look at apoptosis again. And I know what it is, but I don't have it memorized enough to proffer it 100% accurately. So it says apoptosis. Yeah, it's cell suicide. It's cellular suicide. Apoptosis is a process of programmed cell death that occurs in multicellular organisms. Biochemical events lead to characteristic cell changes and death. These changes include blebbing. I don't know what the hell that is. I'm not going to look it up. Cell shrinkage, nuclear fragmentation, chromatin condensation, and chromosomal DNA fragmentation, which it repairs once that stuff's gone away. Apoptosis. Pretty cool stuff. And then this other guy says, perhaps you could tell us what RSO and blood pressure are. Not everyone is informed about this subject. And he didn't jump on it. He says, RSO is the acronym for Rick Simpson oil, the recipe for which is to take an entire mature cannabis plant, full THC, not hemp, or not just only CBD only strains. You cut it at the base, you cure it, you shred it, and you use a pharmaceutical grade solvent such as naphtha or Everclear, that's his personal favorite, to strip the essential oils. And I can also vouch that isopropyl alcohol, 99.9%, will also work for you. And then the resulting liquid is filtered and left exposed to atmosphere to evaporate. I sped mine up by cooking it at a low heat because I just really wanted to get started on this whole journey of not dying. Then the resulting liquid is filtered and left exposed to atmosphere to evaporate. A vacuum oven helps if you've got one of those. I don't. Resulting in a chocolate brown tar that's 90+% pure whole plant extract. If you're looking on the camera right now, an entire cannabis plant, a big tall 6-footer, 1 pound worth of that plant. By the time you boil it down, it's going to be about this much. You'll have a little small jar, a little pot like this, the size of this mouse. It's a computer mouse, typical size mouse. One plant, the size of this mouse, pinhead at a time, build your way up. You're not going to get all stoned and weird if you follow the directions properly. And if you don't follow the directions properly, it doesn't mean it's okay to drop a bunch of rules so the people that do follow the rules properly don't get to have that substance. Let's stop pandering to the lowest common denominator. Even on the GO train, the big problem was about why they need to secure the dogs and everything. Some people are afraid of dogs. Oh, okay. But they're fine with a boa constrictor and a laundry bag because it's got a zipper on it. It's ridiculous. I said to them, what about people who wear perfume? What about those chemicals? Well, we can't do anything about that. Well, then your law is ridiculous. So yeah, Rick Simpson oil, you take an entire mature plant, full THC, not hemp or CBD only strains, cut it at the base, cure it, shred it, use pharmaceutical grade solvent for it, and then you let it bleed out like a tea and gradually bring it down to this paste. Go to phoenixtears.ca to find out more. phoenixtears.ca, brought to you by Rick Simpson. Rick Simpson, brought to you by Canada. Canada, brought to you by the Jesuit priests who took it from these other fellas. Oh, my goodness. It goes around and around. Got a bit more to read here. We're not done yet, folks. God, we started late, remember? We just crested the hour. Gee whiz. All right. I'm just fiddling around here because we're on the fly live, but this would be the time if you are a user. Maybe you're gonna pack your vape right now while I try to figure out what the hell I'm doing here. I recommend vaping, by the way. I for myself, I'm not out there telling people to do it. I'm going to keep spinning those laws around, but I recommend that you do it over smoking. I'm not telling you don't smoke, and I'm not trying to control your life any more than these people that are. That would be the height of hypocrisy for me to tell you not to do something. I'm not going to tell you not to smoke. And I know sometimes the passage through your system of the smoke is pleasurable. And go ahead and do that. I'm just saying I'm at a place now after using this. It's not a fear of cancer thing. It's just something that I prefer to do. It tastes better. It lasts longer too. When you vape your cannabis, which you need in your body for the endocannabinoid system so that you have all of your nutrients so that you don't get sick. When you vape, you don't burn it. You're just drying it out and releasing the active agents in that way. And then later on, guess what you can do with those dried out leaves? They're brown. They're like fall leaves that hit the ground. You can actually use them again for cookies, and it's a nice little chuff powder that you can put into baking. And it still gives you more input from the cannabis, the good stuff in the cannabis. What a generous plant. I mean, you're burning up so much of the fantastic agents inside the cannabis when you are smoking a joint. This probably triples or damn near quadruples the value of. So if you have a pound, it's like having 4 pounds. Of course, you're not allowed to have a pound because the government says so. But I just also would like to mention that I will be appearing at the Karma Cup September 10th. The Karma Cup is, I can't wait to go. I've never been to one, so this is odd doing a sort of a promo bit for a thing I'm not really familiar with. But the Karma Cup is the Stanley Cup for people that create different ways of ingesting cannabis. They refine and improve and intensify the means of delivery, and it's all fun. They're just geeks. They've got equipment. They're coming up with new things all the time. You got an app. You got some aluminum pipe. You got this and that. They're really having a good time with this. And they are developing the highest, most powerful and wonderful and tasty and purpose-driven strains. That's the other thing. There's indica and there's sativa, and they both function differently, and you can hybrid them or have one or the other. And of course, for medical cannabis and for my situation, you want it to be indica. It's okay to take sativa and have your mind think about things, but you're really focusing on the indica because that specifically targets the immune system to the point where your actual immune system that you're not suppressing with artificial means is doing the job of coming back. I'm going to say, in my case, 110%, about 110%. The whole time I was sick with cancer, let me tell you how many times I had the flu or a cold. Zero. I was just kicking the cancer. That's all I was doing. I wasn't really concerned about catching a flu or anything else. So I'm pretty happy with the way this goes. But I will be speaking there for or with Normal Canada, the national organization for the reform of marijuana laws. I'll be there and we'll talk. And I hope to meet some other people there. NHL player Darren McCarty, who's got a bunch of Stanley Cup rings, also a staunch advocate of medical cannabis. He's got great stories to tell about how it was so effective with him as well. So do come down if you get the chance. Karma Cup, Google it up. Not sure where it is at the moment myself. Here's a fella on the Reddit thread saying his dad died last year from heart failure after 20 years of heart medications, blood thinners, pain medications, and general poor treatment. Sounds good. 2 decades of that, huh? He says he really believes now that if he had access to legal cannabis-based meds, this is where it's anecdotal, but hey, he did the regular thing. He listens to his doctor's advice, his father. Says the outcome could have been different. Trials of the legal drugs are done for months and a handful of years and rarely decades. But when the fellow's father was getting older and sicker, his mom had to go back to work. She worked in a doctor's clinic and was responsible for inputting prescriptions. The system popped up warnings if drugs clashed or had side effects when used together. One day she put dad's daily intake in as a test, and it red flagged all of the combos. Yeah, folks, don't always really pay attention when they prescribe something or when you come off of it. Maybe on a different show, I'll talk about my dance with death and Lyrica. 2 times down with the cancer. Next thing you know, I'm on a back pain drug that as soon as I gave it up, I figured I was going to give it all up. I was lucky to be reminded that I had recently gotten rid of that. So check it out on Reddit. Have a look there. You'll see the original, my first interview in this studio on the Raw Mike Richards show. Take a look at that. And do it quickly, though, okay? Because people like me are getting in trouble. Listen to this guy from the Telegraph in England. A Harley Street practitioner claimed he could cure cancer and HIV with lifestyle changes and herbs, court hears. Well, I don't know this guy, and I don't know if he could do all those things. But he was promoting cannabis as well and saying that it could cure cancer, which is accurate. And HIV, which is something I don't really know about, but maybe someone using cannabis for this means and way can tell us about the HIV cannabis usage. Maybe we'll focus on that later. This is in 2013, so a million years ago, but this practitioner said he could cure cancer with lifestyle changes and herbs, and they put it in quotation marks to make him sound nuts. But you do experience lifestyle changes, and you have to make the right ones when you're compromised with a fatal disease. So he is... he got into some big trouble getting arrested. He used his personal Twitter account to say cancer, diabetes, HRV, etc., all are curable without the big pharmaceuticals. It is alleged. So he alleged, and he did time for that. So I don't know where things are going to go with me. I'm never going to shut up about it. If I wind up in prison because of any of this, I mean, fuck you, and I'll tell all the prisoners, you know, so when they get out, everyone's going to do it. No one's going to stop this. These are downloadable now. The lies are done. You get the same people at CAMH, the Canadian mental health situation over there, telling people their number one thing about cannabis is abstinence. Just do abstinence. But meanwhile, there are studies questioning why thousands of people with developmental disabilities are prescribed antipsychotics from CAMH, despite the fact they're having all these troubles. The researchers there have called for guidelines and training around antipsychotic prescribing and monitoring for doctors and home care staff after finding that nearly 40% of people with developmental disabilities were prescribed antipsychotic drugs at some point over a 6-year period. People with Down syndrome and autism and other developmental disabilities were prescribed this terrible drug that they now realize was a huge mistake. And they're the same people saying, don't use cannabis at all. How do all of these rules and laws come down? Well, I spoke earlier about private clubs in the downtown cores, and that's because I recently just found out about them. There's an old building downtown in Toronto, and I've noticed it on my downtown walks several times, and I noticed that I couldn't discern what it was. Now, just about everything in this corporate society has a corporate name plastered on the side. Just do it. Nike, McDonald's, all the time. This thing is a gorgeous old building. Got to be a hell of a tax bill considering where it sits. And I had to figure out what was going on in there. So it just seemed like a fantastic building and an old building, and I wanted to know more about it. And I won't say the name of it because there are several of them in the city of Toronto that have been around just about as long as Toronto, since the 1800s. But if you want to become a member, first of all, you have to be connected. And if you're connected, it means you're probably you're in the legal, the judiciary or government or something. And these are the folks that sit around in these wonderful rosewood teak lounges, the secret club that George Carlin speaks about. It's a giant club and you ain't in it. But at least they do advertise themselves online. Listen to the benefits of membership at one particular club here that's been around since the 1800s. Since 1874, this particular club, it's in the nation of Canada. I will say that. It is a national club. Anyway, they have provided a unique meeting place for Canada's business and political leaders. Our superb facilities and professional staff make the National Club an outstanding venue for personal and business socializing. So that sounds okay. Just a bunch of guys having a G&T after work. Membership in the club provides regular opportunities to meet peers in a variety of fields to help control. While maintaining generations of tradition and hospitality, the club responds graciously to the evolving needs of our members. Their members are evolving. Their needs are evolving. My goodness. Here are some of the things they provide. Elegant private dining and banquet facilities, flexible private function space for groups of 2 to 200. Okay, that's cool. 6 guest rooms, including 1 suite for overnight stays. A 40,000 bottle wine cellar, one of the most extensive in Canada. Automatic membership with the Wine Club. I'll tell you this right now. Alcohol and cannabis affect the brains in different ways. And for people to sit and preach and say how immoral cannabis is while they sit there and imbibe in 40,000 different kinds of alcohol and join a wine club, which provides opportunities to order cases of outstanding wines at excellent prices. The rich get richer. Reciprocal privileges with more than 250 private clubs around the world. Member events, wine tastings, oyster parties, family events, dinner theater events, the Cinephile Society, jazz and champagne events. So that's one club that you can join. Maybe you can set some stuff down there. It's home to current and future leaders. It's a private retreat. Listen to this tagline. Where members build their legacy while gaining rich experiences, relationships, and personal growth. In our storied clubhouse. I'll bet there are stories in that clubhouse. That has got to be the case. Why am I bringing this up? These are the people that influence and control. These are the people that are sitting there right now trying to figure out, okay, when this cannabis thing goes through, how the hell are we going to profit from it? Because when cannabis goes through, it's not going to be everybody's having an easy peasy time with their access to something that's supposed to be given to us. They're not going to have that at all. These folks are trying to figure out how to carve up the pie. This great nation of ours. Oh, Canada. We came over from Europe. We found a bunch of people sitting around that we didn't really respect or give a shit about. And we took stuff from them. And that was a long time ago, before these clubs were built, but by the same people. And now we have a situation where these shots are being called and the people are waking up, that you realize that the future in a corporate world where the dollar goes up and everything costs too much money and you need 3 jobs just to put bills on the table, the last thing you need to do is complicate your life with expensive medical things and practices and drugs and prescriptions that don't go well to each other. This happens all the time. They never do the cross-intra testing to see if taking one drug while you're taking another drug is a problem. They just throw it on. Here's another one. Here's another one. All of this thinking coming from these morally upstanding, fine citizens who look down on the use of cannabis and incorrectly slander it as a gateway drug, which they've only now just taken off the plan. Now they don't think it's a gateway drug anymore, but I say that it is. It's just the gateway in particular is not what they said it was. A gateway drug, such as alcohol or marijuana, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, that is thought to lead to one of the more dangerous drugs, such as cocaine or heroin. It's a bullshit theory. They only used it to scare us. They used it by shooting it straight on down into your amygdala, which is in your brain. It processes emotions. Okay. We're going to wrap up soon. So I'm going to put on the closing theme and take us on out. And I really can't thank you enough for listening to the show. It's amazing to me that I'm getting the support that I am, and I'm very grateful for it because it's helping a lot of people. It is helping a lot of people. So let's just bring this up here, and we'll get going on the end. Cannabis has been around forever. They say it's a gateway drug, and they're right. It's a gateway to the improvement of other things in the brain, things not discussed, things ridiculed if mentioned. I'm saying it again. I've said it before. I'm saying it a different way, but you need to hear it. You know what the batting averages are of your favorite ball team. You know what the diamond is. You know what the umps are. You know what the dugout is. So those kinds of shows don't have to spend a lot of time explaining things, but these things need explaining. So I'll tell you what else it does is it tunes up your thalamus. Cannabis use going through the brain all the way through. They were worried about the blood-brain barrier, but you need the oil. The thalamus is a large ovoid mass of gray matter. That's all interesting. These are just chunks of stuff in your head. But what does it do? It relays sensory impulses to the cerebral cortex. And you're not really using it properly. And you don't really know how it works, most people. And not everybody. I'm sure lots of people do, but most people don't realize that this egg-shaped mass of gray matter at the base of the brain relays sensory impulses to the rest of your brain. And if you're going to sit here and tell me that's not important, then I guess you've never turned on a television set and listened to the fear-mongering on a lot of these channels of news 24/7. The cannabis oil also greases up the hypothalamus. It's another chunk of junk in your brain that you need to use, and it regulates bodily temperature, certain metabolic processes, and other autonomic activities. Very much so immune system related. It's a gateway drug to improvement of the hypothalamus, to improvement of the thalamus. And if this is funny to you, why are you listening to this at the gym while you're trying to improve your body? Thanks for downloading the podcast, by the way. It means a lot to me. But it's hard to understand why people are going to ridicule something that also greases up and improves the functioning of your cerebral cortex. It's where you think. It's the layer of brain often referred to as gray matter because nerves in the area lack the insulation that makes the other part of the brains white. It covers a huge portion of the brain of the cerebrum and the cerebellum. All of these different components, if you knew what you were doing in the engine of a car, there's all kinds of different pieces in there. Let's not ignore our brains anymore, because the last thing these folks want that are holding this cannabis access back is for us to understand just exactly how powerful it is. The Rockefellers said they were in control of the oil. They've got a grip on the oil. They make money with the oil. Well, we're not always talking about motor oil. They don't want access to this oil either. The endocannabinoid system is defined as the signaling system. So we were using that in the hypothalamus and the thalamus, remember? The two G protein coupled receptors known as type 1 and type 2, CB1 and 2. And then when you take CBDs in, you plug them in. It's as simple as putting your MacBook electrical cord into the book and the wall. That's how easy it is. They're all connected to the immune system. This is why I am not sick. This is why I would think that if you were in a similar situation to me earlier, you might take a crack at this. Because let's also not leave out the pineal gland. It is involved in several functions of the body, and you've probably only heard of it. You might have seen a representation of it on the top of the Pope's staff, that pine cone there. They hide it all over the place. It is in charge of secreting the hormone melatonin, which puts you to sleep. It regulates the endocannabinoid functions because it's part of it. It's responsible for the conversion of nervous system signals to endocrine signals. It causes feelings of sleepiness. It influences sexual development. One way or the other comfortably without the trauma of switching halfway through your life. It influences immune system function. Hey now, or you could flatten it with the available drugs covered by your drug plan. And there's also an antioxidant activity with the pineal gland. And when you're using it properly, oh boy, some authors, such as Rick Strassman, who has a great book on DMT, which is built and released in the pineal gland, calls it a bridge to divine consciousness, a knowing, an awareness. And while all of this is going on, of course, Yale is still telling us that marijuana may really be a gateway drug. Boy, does that fall off. Yale, everybody goes, oh, Yale, well, they must know what they're talking about, right? Well, if Yale's saying that. And then we just have to remember that Yale is the home and epicenter of the Skull and Bones Club. Go look at those movies and wonder why all the presidents pretty much came up and through there when they only take 15 members per year into the Skull and Bones, and it just keeps on going down the line. So then you look up Skull and Bones influence on the medical systems and developments. You're left with nothing more than a big old campaign of truth suppression and a money grab. So from the rules of the 25 ways to suppress truth, we'll just dive into this and then we will say goodbye for today. Okay, so this is a great little piece of information here. This is from the 25 ways to suppress the truth. Number 23. Here we go. Create bigger distractions. If the further obfuscations listed above do not seem to be working to distract from sensitive issues or to prevent unwanted media coverage of unstoppable events such as trials or guys talking about how cannabis can save your life with a plant, then you must create bigger news stories or treat them as such to distract the multitudes. And I'm saying goodbye to the multitudes. You've been listening to Green Crush. I had a good time. Send us some information. Send us some questions. We're at Green Crush Pod. At Green Crush Pod, and I'd love to take your questions. I'm also available at Alan Comic on Twitter. Also available on Facebook. Green Crush. Also available on YouTube. And like I was saying, The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett, Syrett. It was on Sunday night, which is technically Monday morning by the time I got to it. We'll throw up a link on the Facebook page later on. Check it out. It's really cool stuff. I'm having a really good time still being here. And I'm not taking any shit. I'm not going away until they kill me. If you ever hear about my suicide, it's bullshit. Have a great day.
Is 420 camping your thing? Do you like cannabis cups? Want to learn more about cannabis? Enjoy music festivals? Living on the East Coast or looking for a really good reason to visit? Then Harvest Fest is calling your name.
Join us the weekend of July 14th to 16th at Fox Mountain Camping Park in the Annapolis Valley, Nova Scotia, to meet like-minded people, have your cannabis questions answered, listen to great bands, and have a blast.
Service lots available and camping is included in festival admission. $60 for the weekend or $30 for Friday and $40 for Saturday. Food trucks, hot showers, flush toilets, and accessible washrooms. Rolling contest sponsored by Canadian Lumber Limited, with chances to win a case of rolling papers and more throughout the weekend.
For info about attending or vending, email chair@mumm.ca. Hope to see you there.
We are the Cannabis Broadcasting Group here at CBGT.